Amelia Hart was used to being invisible, working as a waitress at the Silver Swan, a high-end restaurant nestled in the heart of Manhattan. She floated through the dining hall in black heels and a crisp white apron, quietly setting down flutes of champagne and plated appetizers for the wealthy elite who dined beneath the chandeliers. The guests barely noticed her. To them, she was just another part of the background, a server, a shadow. But Amelia didn't mind, not much anyway. At 24, she had dreams too big for the small apartment she shared with her roommate, and far too large for the silent halls of the restaurant. Every morning before her shift, she would practice piano at a rundown community center downtown. No one knew that the hands which gracefully served lobster bisque and poured vintage wine were the same hands that could make Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata sing. She had studied music in college just 2 years before her mother got sick, and bills began piling up. No father around and no siblings, Amelia had to take over. Her studies stopped, dreams paused, and the black and white keys of the piano grew dustier with time. Still, she practiced, quietly, anonymously, faithfully. The Silver Swan was known for its exclusivity. The crowd was old money, new money, and everything in between. Investors, actors, politicians, and once even a royal from a small European country. The restaurant offered 5-star cuisine, vintage wines, and most nights, a live jazz pianist, who played at a grand piano near the fountain in the center of the room. That night, the pianist canceled last minute. The manager, a fidgety man named Robert, paced nervously by the entrance. "This can't be happening," he muttered, scanning the room where nearly every table was full. Renowned film director sat in one corner. A tech billionaire chatted with 2 CEOs near the window. A famous opera singer sipped from a glass of red wine at the bar. The pressure was enormous. "I'll try calling someone else," Robert muttered. But the backup pianist was out of town. Time was ticking. Amelia watched quietly from behind the bar, towel in hand. Her heart beat faster and her palms tingled. With a nervous energy, she looked at the empty piano in the middle of the dining room. The stool sat untouched, the glossy black keys waiting. She stepped forward. "Slowly, Robert," she said softly. He turned, distracted. "Not now, Amelia. We have a problem, I know. I can play."
I'm not understanding what.
"I can play the piano," she said again, firmer this time. "I studied for years. Let me fill in." He stared at her as if she'd grown wings. "You're a waitress." "I'm also a pianist," she replied calmly. Robert hesitated. Then glanced around the room. Guests were beginning to murmur, noticing the absence of music. He had no other option. "You have one chance," he said. "If it goes wrong, I understand." Amelia took a deep breath and walked across the restaurant. Floor heads turned slightly, confused. Waitstaff weren't supposed to touch the instruments. A couple of guests raised their eyebrows. The opera singer looked mildly curious. She sat down on the bench. For a moment, the world fell silent. She placed her fingers gently on the keys, closed her eyes, and began to play. It started softly, a single melody, line clear, haunting, and delicate. Then her left hand joined, weaving harmony into the tune like golden thread. The notes flowed like water, rising and falling with emotion, reaching into every corner of the restaurant. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. The tech billionaire leaned back in his chair, stunned. The opera singer put down her glass and stared. Eyes wide, the entire room froze, as if time itself had been suspended by the spell of the music. Amelia played with a depth that came from years of silent practice, from heartbreak, from sacrifice. Every note told a story of dreams paused, of hope buried, of resilience. She moved from classical to jazz, then into a soulful, improvised piece that echoed with emotion, so raw it brought tears to one woman's eyes. Even Robert stood still by the entrance. Utterly silent, the piece ended in a whisper, her fingers gently fading off the keys. For a second, there was silence. Complete, stunned silence. Then the room erupted. Chairs scraped back as guests stood to their feet. Applause filled the restaurant, loud and thunderous. Someone whistled. The opera singer clapped with both hands above her head. One man banged the table in excitement. Amelia stood, face flushed, unsure what to do. Robert approached, eyes wide. That was believable. I just played what I felt, she said quietly, as she turned to leave the piano. A woman in an elegant green dress stopped her. Excuse me, she said. Where did you train? Amelia smiled shyly. Studied for 2 years at Juilliard. But I couldn't finish. Pity, the woman said. You should be performing in front of thousands, not carrying plates. Others began to crowd around. A man handed her his business card. A representative from a music agency asked if she had recordings. A famous Broadway composer invited her to audition for an upcoming show. Amelia was overwhelmed. That night changed. Everything by the next week, videos of her impromptu performance had gone viral. Someone in the restaurant had recorded it on their phone and posted it online with the caption, "Waitress sits at piano watch. What happens next?" Within days, the clip had millions of views. People were calling her the Phantom Pianist and the Swan Secret Star. Music schools reached out. Talk shows requested interviews. Local news ran a feature on her. She was invited to perform at a charity gala, then a televised event, then finally Carnegie Hall as part of her rising. Artists showcased Amelia finally left the Silver Swan. Her last shift was quiet. Some of the guests recognized her now and treated her with a new kind of respect. But she still moved gracefully, her apron tied neatly, and her smile as humble as ever. Before leaving, she paused at the piano once more. She sat down and played. A short melodia thank you, perhaps. Goodbye. Robert watched from behind the bar. You're going to be famous, he said. Amelia smiled. Maybe, but I'll never forget this place. Months passed. Amelia's career blossomed. She toured with orchestras, released her own album, and finally returned to Juilliard to complete her studies. But she never let go of where it all started. She continued volunteering at the community center where she used to practice. She taught piano to kids who had never touched an instrument. She spoke about patience, about perseverance, and about how talent could bloom even in the shadows. Years later, the Silver Swan added a small plaque near the piano. Amelia Hart first performed here on a night no one would forget. Every now and then, she would visit, sometimes unannounced. Dressed in jeans and a hat, she'd walk in, sit down at the piano, and play a short piece before disappearing into the night. And every time she did, the room fell silent, because no matter how many grand stages she graced, there was something magical about that night, the night a waitress became the star. It left an elite crowd speechless, not with wealth or fame, but with the pure, timeless power of music.